Hi guys! Today I'm painting a monochromatic watercolor landscape. Monochromatic just means one color. So I used koi watercolors, a soft medium-sized round brush, some washi tape for the edges, and of course water. And here's my paper, 140-pound Canson watercolor paper. And this is just a closer look at my watercolor set. Sorry about the messy palette, ew. This is a small set, a smaller set, it's like a travel size set, but because these are higher quality paints, they really are so saturated, it doesn't take much, and they lasted a really long time. So you see me here spraying with it's just water in a little bottle. I sprayed the paints and I sprayed the page. Spraying the paints helps just get them wet, and these are the kind that you do, you know, the little dry squares, right? And so you do have to get those wet to use them. There are other forms of watercolor paint. I also sprayed the paper, as you may have seen. Sometimes this is something you want to do when you watercolor paint, and sometimes it's not. I wanted to spray it because I wanted less control, and having water on the paper tends to make the paint spread a little bit, and that was a desirable thing for me with this piece. Also, it helped me because I was kind of covering a largish area. It made it so that it was easier to put the paint on, and I was less likely to accidentally kind of scrub on the paper with my brush to try to get the paint on, which you really don't ever want to do. That tends to damage the paper and leads to some undesirable things. So if you can get out of that habit and just be very gentle with your brush and your paper, then that can be very helpful in your watercolor painting. So I'm gradually building up layers here. I created a very light background for the sky, and now I'm creating still quite a light area that's the farthest away hill or mountain. And then here I'm starting to make a little bit darker still hill or mountain area. In between layers, I try to let the watercolor or the paint dry at least most of the way. Again, it really depends on what you're trying to do in your painting, whether or not you want to let layers dry, but often this is a good thing. And I ended up just using the medium brush. As I said at the beginning, you may have noticed that I was holding a smaller brush, but because of this, being a landscape, just this medium-sized brush was actually really good. So this is the only one I used. This is a really good beginner painting. Because it's just one color, you can focus on value, and value is just how light or dark areas are. And so instead of getting hung up on what colors you're going to use and mixing colors and just all of that mess, well, it's not a mess, it's a good thing, but if you're trying to just get used to watercolors, get used to painting, whatever, then just using one color right here takes a lot of the burden off of all the different choices that you have to make. And you just enjoy creating the background and the middle ground and the foreground, which is what we're making with this painting. And also you can just kind of get used to just how the paint flows, and and also you can focus on just making the shapes of whatever it is you're painting, and in this case mountains or hills, and then we'll do a little bit of a sky as well. So yeah, it's a good way to start. Plus, I mean, if you just want to relax too, even if you're not a beginner, it's just a nice way to really chill out and just be able to enjoy painting and making shapes. So after a little bit more drying time, now I'm just creating the foreground, which is just another hill or mountain, whatever these are. And so I'm going to make it the darkest. As a general rule, things that are the closest in a painting or a drawing tend to be darkest, and things that are farthest away tend to be lightest. Although, depending on how light falls, there are definitely exceptions to this rule. And here, while the paint's still wet, I'm just kind of tapping my brush and shaping it to make it look a little bit like there are some trees covering this closest hill. And now I'm going in and going to develop the sky just a little bit. Still just using my same blue. So I sprayed it again to have less control, and I really, especially with the sky, I want the paint to just kind of spread around and do its thing. So I kind of spray it multiple times here. And you'll see me picking up the paper. I want it to just kind of, the paint to glide down over the page, and so that, because I want more random shapes for the clouds. And now I'm just cutting off the edge that, this was just kind of because of the shape of my page. I ended up deciding to use that to test my paints, and now I'm just cutting it off. If possible, you do really want to make sure the paint is dry at this point. It just, that way it's less likely to smear and mess up your nice little edges. Although, admittedly, I've many times not completely waited for it to dry. You also might kind of notice some little pencil marks around the page, and that's just where I was kind of measuring my paper when I was initially going to cut it to size. And I kind of wait, and again, until the paint is really, really dry before I would want to try to erase those marks. So I hope this was fun for you and that it encourages you to make your own painting. Thanks for watching.